Hello, everybody. Tate Davis here. Happy 4th of July weekend. I'm here with another album battle for you. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Where I take an album battle, is where I take two albums of my liking, whether they sound alike, whether they can compare them, and then just talk about them and decide which one I would rather take on a desert island with me. So you don't have to agree with me. This is just my opinion. The two contenders in today's battle are going to be in one corner. We have UFO, their first album, UFO 1. The pre-Michael Schenker era. UFO would release two studio albums and one live album with guitarist Mick Bolton before he left, and they had a couple other guys come in, and the form of Larry Wallace and Bernie Marsden before Schenker finally joined him in 1974. But this is the first one that came out in 1970. I believe it was produced by Derek Abrahams, or co-produced it. It was released on Beacon Records in the UK, and this is a Repertoire Records reissue. There are the guys in the back there. More on that in a bit. And then in the other corner we have Yes, the Yes album from 1971. This is their third album. First one with Steve Howe, last one with Tony Kaye. On the back here, so. Let's talk about the UFO album first, because it was released first historically. So like I said before, released in 1970. I believe it was produced by Derek Abrahams. I, for the life of me, can't remember where it was recorded. Somewhere in London, I believe. You guys can tell me in the comments below if you know. But a cool little note that Derek Abraham writes here is, if I can read it to you. A couple months ago, Noel Moore, Beacon label manager, called me up and asked if I could visit his office as soon as I was able. That meant immediately. He said he had found an exciting new group, and he wanted my opinion for what it was worth on their talents. Listening to the record was a rewarding experience, and I wanted to become more involved in their welfare as soon as possible. This too meant immediately. My first meeting with the band proved my thoughts to be correct. They were young, probably not long out of school, and still experimenting with sound. Although they were quite accomplished musicians, the boys, Mick Bolton, 20 on lead guitar, Pete Way, 19 on bass guitar, Andy Parker, 18 on drums, and Phil Mogg, 19, who was the singer, were still having some difficulty coordinating. But as I said, that was a couple months ago. Now we consider them to be together enough for us to release the first album. Many of the tracks are written between them and a musical expression on their innocence and thoughts of the world we live in. We all hope you enjoy it as much as the boys did making it, Derek Abrahams. So a nice little note there on the on this reissue. I got this in the mail about a year ago. It was the packaging is really nice. I think Repertoire Records did a really good job. It sounds great too. It's got that really nice raw production to it, but the people over at the wonderful folks over at Repertoire Records did a really good job remastering it while still kind of keeping that raw sort of ambiance to this album that gives it a little bit of its charm. So what about the songs? So side one opens up with a cool, spooky little instrumental called an unidentified flying object. Dun, dun, dun. Really catchy there. Boogie, also known as Boogie for George, is a great tune. Great vocals by Phil Mogg, great guitar solo by Mr. Bolton. Cool cover of Come On Everybody by Eddie Cochran. Shake It About, another cool tune. Their take on Come Away Melinda, I think, is really, really good. A cool guitar solo at the end by Mick Bolton with a little bit of a bolero feel that's really cool. Opening up side two, we have a cool, fast little ditty called Timothy. Oh, Timothy, where do you come from? Cool, really good tune. Follow You Home, Pete Way written track. You know, it's good. Probably my least favorite on the album. It's kind of a derivative song of You Really Got Me. Treacle People, I think, is a cool, funky tune. A cool version of Who Do You Love by Bo Diddley. I like the live version better, but the studio version's decent. And then finishes off with a really, really cool, funky, bluesy tune called Evil. So overall, I don't think UFO have quite found their sound yet on this album, but for what it is, this kind of mishmash of space rock and blues and kind of boogie, I think it works pretty well. I really enjoyed this album. I think it's a little bit underrated. A lot of UFO fans aren't really quite fond of their first two albums. Their second album, UFO Flying, kind of saw them dive headfirst more into kind of space rock territory. But a great album, a good solid album. This one is probably not great, but for what it is, I think it is very good, and it holds up strong. I really like the raw production of this album. I think it has a certain charm to it, and it's very human. This album, very organic. So over in the other corner, we have Yes. The Yes album, like I said, first one with Steve Howe on guitar, replacing Peter Banks. Peter Banks, by this point, had gone to go form Flash, who were, in my opinion, sound like a Yes clone, and had some success with their first album. And then this is the last one with Tony Kaye on keyboard, on all sorts of keyboards, before Rick Wakeman would come in and replace him on the Fragile album. So who else we got in the band? We got John Anderson on lead vocals and percussion, the wonderful, ever-capable Chris Squire on bass and backing vocals, Steve Howe on electric and acoustic guitars, Tony Kaye on Hammond organ, piano, and Moog synthesizers, and then the incredible Bill Bruford on drums. I love Bill Bruford. Was recorded at Activision Studios in London, was produced by the band and Eddie Odford. Brian Lane was the coordination. He's their manager at the time. One of the tracks on there, The Clap, was recorded at the Lyceum Theatre in London. Here's the back cover right here. Pretty cool. Pretty cool album cover here with the guys in the band and the weird statues and the green chair. So what songs we got on here? We got the opener, Yours Is No Disgrace. Probably one of my favorite Yes songs. Dun 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 dun. Great song. Great vocals by John Anderson. A wonderful guitar, little guitar figure by Steve Howe. Augmented by some syncopated drumming by Mr. Bruford. Really good stuff. The Clap, which is the live track, a really cool acoustic guitar instrumental by Steve Howe. That's a great one. Closing off side one, we have the awesome Starship Trooper. Debatably one of John Anderson's best vocals. I'd say so. The band sound really tight on this album. Cool. There's also some really cool atmospheric keyboards by Tony Kaye on Starship Trooper as well. Side 2, the classic I've Seen All Good People. Great vocal harmonies by Anderson, Squire, and Howe. Don't need to really dive in too much on that. We all know how great that one is. Track 5, A Venture. Really kind of cool tune that I wish was a little bit longer. Cool keyboard work by Tony Kaye on that one. And then closing off the album, we have the wonderful Perpetual Change, which I think is another great song. Again, cool vocals by John Anderson. Really great jazz influenced drumming by Bill Bruford in this too. So overall, top 3 Yes album could probably be my favorite depending on what day you ask me. This is a great album, all killer, no filler. So when I compare it up to the UFO album, however, for what it is, this is good. I'm probably a bigger UFO fan than I am of Yes by a little bit. To me, this is good for what it is. Very solid album for what it is. I don't think UFO quite found their sound yet, but they were getting there. This, on the other hand, is spectacular. Just a band who really, at that point, had found their sound, and with one personnel change, really shined and exploded as the great band that they were. No offense to Tony Kaye. I love Tony Kaye, but Wakeman really made Yes a force to be reckoned with. So I'd say probably a third round KO if we're talking in terms of boxing analogy here. UFO put up a pretty good fight in the first 2 rounds, but unfortunately, now if this were like Phenomenon or Force It or No Heavy Petting or Lights Out or Obsession, any of the Shankar era stuff, UFO would probably win against Yes, but this is before Shankar joined the band, so Yes wins this one. If you like this one better, hey, that's fine. This is just my opinion and my opinion only. Thank you guys very much for joining me on this little album battle here, and stay tuned for more things like this in the future, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.